Cool. I'm muting myself here. Ideally, put on headphones and play the live also on your phone or something so that you can keep a check. Okay? If it's too loud, you'll understand from the live itself, so you can reduce accordingly. Okay? Cool. I'm going live. Ali.
Guys, don't move. Few things to keep in mind.
I'm
Not
going
to move
live.
the table.
Hmm.
Not to move much. आप लोग एकदम frame के edge.
We are live. Are we live? Yes, we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Whoever has joined in, I'm sorry for the delay. This is the first time we are doing this, so there are a lot of technical glitches. But regardless, we are here, and we are here with Mr. Talk, Mr. Ali, who's going to help us understand what happened today in the budget and what does India's economy look like for the next year. Ali, are you excited?
Yes, I am. Let's go, Rohit.
Awesome. Before I go ahead, let me just put up a story. Need to do some social stuff just to make sure that people are coming in. So stay tuned. And guys, in case you have any question, please feel free to put it down in the chat box. I'm also looking at the chat box. So in case you have any questions that come up, please feel free to do it. Let me just quickly put up a story. Okay. Okay, guys, we are live. Ali, we are live. Yes.
All right.
Let's go. Okay. Okay. So let's start off, Ali.
Yeah.
First thing is, what is the budget essentially? Like, break it down for the layman. Why is budget important? What is the budget? Why is it such a big day?
The budget is basically a document that is prepared where
Sorry.
the central government lists out all its revenues from where the money is coming in and all its expenditures, where the money is going out. So, and usually the expenditures of the government is usually more than its income, and that is a healthy figure. And especially a country like India, a country that is growing, our expenditure is much more than our income. So this document basically lists that out, and also the budget is for listing out policies of the government and social welfare programs of the government, where the government gives that I want to do this policy in the future and that policy in the future, and also how its policies in the past have performed. So it gives the government a chance to, well, toot its own horn, if you will. So that is basically what the budget is.
Okay. So before I go ahead in terms of understanding the budget, what is this halwa ceremony? Why is halwa prepared every time before the budget?
They have their own sort of ceremonies, and this year it was made a particularly big deal because I think our finance minister took a very funny picture of it, and it was made into a lot of memes. So I think on the last day of the budget, the people who are preparing the budget, they sit in one room. It's like a bunker style thing. They sit in one room. So the last day when they get out of the room, they have this sort of halwa ceremony.
Right.
It goes way back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just jump into what was spoken about this time, right? When it comes to the budget, these decisions are like preparing a budget. They're decisions that are made throughout the year. It doesn't happen on a single day, right? So what are they doing to, like, the details that were released today? How is it relevant throughout the year when things can change anytime?
See, basically, it's you're right in a way that all these schemes are implemented throughout the year. The government can come out and say anything at any time. But it's good to have one particular day where you prepare a vision document for the next year. Now, when we are talking the next year, just to be clear, we're talking about the next financial year. So this budget that was announced, its measures get implemented on 1st April of 2023
Right.
up till 31st March of next year, 2024. So it's good to have one day where this vision document is prepared. It's like, example, if you are a salaried employee, for example, Rohit, you would sort of, at the beginning of the year, you would make this one document saying, okay, I'm going to earn so much from my salaries. If I have some investments and all, okay, I'm going to earn so much from my investments. So this is my total income.
Right.
And here is where I'm going to spend the money. It's good for you to have a blueprint of that
Right.
this is where I'm going to spend my money and I can't go majorly overboard. Obviously, in your personal capacity as well as the government, things can go a little here and there, 19-20, like they say. So then they revise their estimates. There's something called budgeted estimate, and there's something called revised estimate, and there's something called actuals.
Right.
So they keep a contingency for that, but it's good to have the blueprint prepared once and for all. So you have something to stick by, a benchmark.
Right. So it's similar to what companies and startups also do, right?
It's similar to what companies and startups do. It's similar to what individuals do. The government also does the same thing.
Okay.
It's always good to be prudent.
Okay.
It's always good to have a roadmap ahead of you, strategy planning, whatever you may call it.
So could you give a breakdown of this was all about how government is going to spend its money. Where is government getting its money from?
Government revenue comes from mainly taxation. So mainly tax revenues. We have our income tax revenues,
Right.
which have actually been doing pretty well. And we also have our indirect tax revenues, that is GST. Our GST collections have now been more than 1 lakh crore every month.
Wow.
So, and much more than, I think in 1-2 months it also crossed 1,50,000 crores, which is excellent.
It's been doing record high.
Yes. It's doing a record high practically every month. So the major source of government money, where the government gets its money from, is tax revenue.
Right.
Then they also have something called disinvestment, where government also runs a bunch of companies. Public sector companies,
Right.
government, they have Coal India, and they have BEL, and they have another bunch of government companies which they run. So government sells its stake sometimes in those companies, like it's sold in LIC, like it's sold in Air India,
Right.
and they had a little bit of stake in Axis Bank also, which they sold at, IDBI Bank, for example. So when they sell that stake, that is another source of revenue for them. Then these public sector units, they give them dividend also. These public sector units are businesses end of the day. Whatever profits they earn, they have to give it to their owners. In this case, it's the government.
Right.
So government earns from dividends also, from disinvestments also, from tax revenue, which is the main thing. And the government borrows money also from the market.
Right.
So those are its revenue sources.
Got it. There was, before the budget happens, there is something called as an economic survey, I believe, that also happens.
Correct.
What is the economic survey?
So,
and how does it affect the budget, or what is the importance of it?
So the economic survey was actually done yesterday, which was 31st Jan.
It's always one day before.
It's always one day before. The economic survey is basically, it is a report card of what has happened in the previous year. How each sector, what were the targets of each sector, how they have performed, why has it not been up to mark, or why has it done better. So it's a report card of the past. It is a past looking document. The budget is a future looking document. It is a forecast of what we expect to earn in the future,
Right.
and what is our expenditure in the future.
Got it. Interesting. So we have one question from Raghav asking to explain the tax regime, which we'll definitely get into.
Yes, we will get into that later on. The new
Right.
tax regime versus the old tax regime.
Correct.
We have that slated for later on.
Correct. Again, now, what are your thoughts on the finance minister right now?
Nirmala Sitharaman,
Yeah.
well, she was given charge of the finance ministry after Arun Jaitley. I think there was a small period in which our current railway minister also, Piyush Goyal, was in charge of finance ministry for a bit. And after that, she was given in charge of finance ministry. She comes from a finance background. I believe she has worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, or one of those companies. So initially this is her 5th budget. So when she was given charge, the first 2 budgets were just short of disasters, to be very honest. They weren't good.
She was given control in 2019 or 2018? 2019, I believe.
2018, I think.
18, is it?
2018. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Got it.
2018. This is the 5th budget. So the first 2 budgets were just short of disasters, in the sense that whatever estimates she had made, they couldn't stick by it, and they had to do a lot of course correction on the way, and it was a messy situation, basically. And she didn't give to the right sectors, and everyone had a lot of complaints, this, that. From the 3rd budget onwards, she's actually warmed up to that post of finance minister, and the next 3 budgets, including this budget, were very good.
Okay.
This budget was actually a very good budget, an excellent budget if you ask any economist, because she properly balanced between fiscal, there's something, I'm going to use a technical
Hmm.
word, it's called fiscal prudence. She
Hmm.
balanced between that
Hmm.
and growth.
Hmm.
Usually there is a balance that if you put too much money into growth, your fiscal prudence, it slips.
Okay.
Fiscal prudence in the sense that
What is
your
fiscal prudence?
expenditures, yeah. Fiscal prudence is basically your expenditures go way above your incomes.
Okay.
You know, and of course, when your expenditure goes way above your income, how do you make up for that deficit?
Hmm.
You have to borrow money.
Hmm.
Now, this is the part. The most important figure in the budget is called fiscal deficit,
Hmm.
which is exactly what it sounds.
Hmm.
When your expenditure overshoots your income, the amount that you have to borrow to make up for that deficit, it's called fiscal deficit. Okay.
Okay, so let me put it in simpler terms, which is basically the difference between what you're spending versus what you're earning. If your
Correct.
spending is more than you're earning, you need to borrow some money, and that
Correct.
borrowed money is fiscal deficit, basically.
That borrowed money is fiscal deficit, basically. Now, what happens is because of COVID, our fiscal deficit, our this borrowings from the market, it went through the roof. Usually, it's between, let's say, 2 to 4% of GDP. Okay, it's 2 to 4% of GDP. Last year, this year, this year that has gone by, our fiscal deficit was 6.4% of GDP. That means we had to borrow so much more money from the market.
Right.
And now this year, the government has announced in the budget that our fiscal deficit is going to reduce from 6.4% to 5.9%.
Okay.
And India has told the world that our fiscal deficit will be, in 2 years, it will be 4.5% of GDP. So we are going towards that path. Now, I will tell you one more thing. This is the way economics works. If a government has a big fiscal deficit and they need to borrow a lot of money from the market, what happens is that crowds out private investment. Means what? If the government borrows a lot of money from the market, it's a ratio of demand and supply. The interest rates automatically go up because it's demand and supply. You're demanding more money from the market. So
Correct.
money is in short supply.
Correct.
So your interest rates will go up. Now, when these interest rates go up, the private investment will not kick in because they are discouraged.
Right.
Because when the interest rates are up, why will they borrow more money?
Correct.
So the government has to really tread this path very carefully.
Hmm.
If they say, I want to promote growth and India needs growth and this and that, they have to spend money.
Right.
But to spend money, you have to borrow money. And when you borrow too much money from the market, your interest rates go up and you're crowding out private investment. So
Right.
it's a very tricky path.
Right. Right.
So that's why this number fiscal deficit is very important.
Very interesting. It's like chicken and the egg question.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Nice, nice. Okay. So there is one question I think that we can take up, which is that Raghav is asking, what are the top 5 expenses of the government?
Top 5 expenses. That's a hard one. See, it changes every year, but welfare programs are, of course, one of the top 5 expenses. Subsidies that the governments give, subsidies for food, grains. Like example, this year they have announced they are going to spend 2 lakh crores to give free food grains to the poor.
Correct.
Okay, so that is another.
So this was an announcement that was made before itself, which has now been made part of the budget, or that's different?
No. This was just made in the budget just
Okay.
now. A few hours ago, it was made in the budget that we are going to give free food grains worth 2 lakh crores. So
Right.
these subsidies are very big expenditures. Okay, then you have on welfare programs such as job generation program. We have something called the MN Negras. This is
Mahatma Gandhi.
correct. Mahatma Gandhi something Yojana. So this government has very fancy names.
If
for
someone
all.
knows it, you can put it down in the chat box. We are
MN
also sort
Negras,
of a little.
yes. So it's a job generation scheme which they put a lot of money into, and that sort of helps the poor people get jobs. So such welfare schemes and subsidies are the major expenses of the government.
Right.
Then the government has gone and spent big time on infrastructure this year, which we'll get into. So it changes every year.
What about defense?
Defense also. Now, last year, for example, we had spent 5,25,000 crores on defense, and they had expected which was 10% bump up from last year.
Okay.
And what is happening in defense is now we are promoting defense manufacturing in India in a big way. And also because of our China threat. China is continuously being more aggressive towards India.
Right.
So we had to sort of we have to pump in more money towards defense.
Right.
But this budget, no defense, no allocation towards defense was announced in the budget. We have to look at the fine print for that figure. So it wasn't announced this year. We'll find it in the fine print.
Perfect.
But that is also one of the biggest expenditures of the government on defense.
Right. Okay, we've got the full form. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act.
Yes.
Amazing.
Correct.
Thank you so much, Raghav.
So schemes like this, we spend a lot on schemes like this. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, let's jump into the budget then.
Yeah.
What would you say was what according to you, in your view, because of course different people have different views, was the most shocking announcement?
The highlight of the budget, in my view, was the amount the government has committed towards spending on infrastructure. Last year, we spent 7,50,000 crores on infrastructure. Government had allocated this. This year, it was expected to be 9 lakh crores. Government went ahead and it made it 10 lakh crores, 10 trillion rupees on infrastructure, which is a 33% bump up since last year.
Okay.
So this is massive on infrastructure. Now the thing with the thing with infrastructure is it has a multiplier effect.
Okay.
Means what? If the government goes ahead with a big infrastructure project, firstly, not only will it promote growth in a big way, it promotes jobs in a big way. Somewhere I read that every rupee spent on infrastructure by the government has a multiplier effect of 3.
Interesting.
Yes, because they generate jobs, then those jobs drive up consumption in the economy.
Upskilling happens of
Yes,
people. Better.
upskilling happens. So a lot of multiplier effects. So this was their main, in my opinion, the highlight of the budget was the spending on infrastructure.
Right.
And it was 2.5, it was just 6-7 years ago. This figure was only 2.5 lakh crores.
Wow.
So it has gone
It has
fourfold.
5x.
Fourfold.
4, 5.
Four.
Two not-
Two and a half.
Okay,
Two and a half.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
2.5. From 2.5, 6-7 years ago to 10 trillion now.
Wow.
So that was a highlight of the budget in my
And did
opinion.
they specify what are they going to spend it on?
I mean, obviously, they didn't have this time to spend. I mean, specify exactly what they're going, which particular aspects of infrastructure they're going to spend on. But roads, railways, highways, ports, big turnkey projects, basically infrastructure projects.
Got it. And this budget was big also because next year is the main elections, right?
Correct.
And I'm guessing there were a lot of things in this budget that I would say were to say give incentive to the poor and the middle class, which is the largest section of India, to their vote bank basically. Do you
Correct.
think there were any such schemes that were?
Of course. They promoted agriculture in a big way, of course. And I'll just get to this one point where you said, which is a very interesting point, where you said the general elections and why people are saying this is the last full budget. But they had a lot of every budget basically has a lot to do with agriculture. So they have a lot of reforms for agriculture. But this one particularly stood out because of the word agri-tech. So they're planning to bring technology into agriculture in a big way.
Did they not already do that?
It wasn't so much
Right.
in every budget. Agri-tech, the word agri-tech, I haven't heard.
Okay.
So this budget really concentrated on that, and also they are promoting startups in the agriculture space in a big way. They have something called an agriculture startup fund. Also, they have enhanced credit limits for agriculture. They are bringing more technology into agriculture, and also India till today doesn't have a unicorn in the agriculture startup space.
Interesting. Nice.
So maybe this agri-tech. Promotion of agri-tech in a big way, we might just see an agri-tech unicorn in this year.
Now that you say it, it's surprising that there's no unicorn in the agri-tech sector because agriculture is such a big
Correct, because we haven't included technology in our agriculture sector. Now,
Right.
example, countries like Israel and even for example, you look at even a country like Ukraine and all, they have so much technology in their agriculture. They do it as in the modern way, you know what I mean. We're still very backward in that respect, but I think the government has caught on to that finally.
That's interesting. So if
Yeah.
if the tech part of it comes in, then it's going to be
Oh, yes.
agriculture in a big
Oh yes, in a big way, in a big way.
Interesting. So yeah, you mentioned one thing, which is the full budget.
Correct. So basically, they say that this is the last full budget before the general elections. Now, general elections are in May of next year.
Correct.
So in Feb of next year, same time, Feb 1st, we will have a budget.
Correct.
But that budget will not be a full budget, because that budget will have only 2 months to play with. That budget will be from 1st April 2024. The full budget would be from 1st April 2024 to 31st March 2025. But in between, the elections are there.
Right.
And in the elections, a new government can come. There is a possibility of a new government coming, correct? So next year's budget will be something called an interim budget, or a vote on account, basically, where they will be making a budget only for 2 months.
Okay.
And they will have to take parliament approval for that, for every expenditure that they do. So that's why this is the last full budget, and this was their last chance to sort of woo their vote bank, middle class, and the rural poor, from the rural sections and all.
Interesting. Okay. So so is a new budget created when a new government comes in, like after the full budget? So in Feb, on Feb 1st of 24, there'll be a budget which will be interim, right? Which
Correct.
will be for 2 months.
Correct.
So if a new government comes in, do they
Yes.
then do a new
Yes.
budget?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They have a new budget.
Right. Okay. Cool. Now going back to the schemes that were spoken about, let's break it down. Say for the sections of society, I think that'll be easier to do.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So what are the benefits that are first for the poor?
See, basically, a good budget is one that takes care of everyone's needs. A good budget, you can say this was a good budget when it concentrates on when it focuses on the long-term growth of the country, from the long-term growth in terms of job generation, and also it has something for everyone. Okay. So you asked me first, what did it have for the poor people? Okay. So this budget concentrated a lot on affordable housing. They allocated around 79,000 crores for affordable housing. And again, this affordable housing has a very fancy name, typical of the Modi government, Awas Yojana, I think it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Something on that, on those lines. So anyways, it allocated 79,000 crore towards affordable housing, which was great. It had a lot of reforms for the agriculture sector, in the sense that they enhanced limits for credit. So so people who are into agriculture, they can get credit much easier. So so they can do business easier. Then they've also made an agriculture startup fund. Then they have given free food grains, like I mentioned, which will be entirely borne by the government. It won't be subsidized. It will be entirely borne by the government.
And that is for
2 lakh crores for all the poor.
81 crore. It constitutes 81 crore Indians out of the 130 crore Indians.
Correct. It does. So these were the things they have for the poor people.
What about the middle class? What about people like us?
Yes, middle class. Tax breaks. That's what we had. Tax breaks. So
That was the main thing.
Tax breaks was the main thing that they had for the middle class people.
So
which-
let's take
yes.
Raghav's question as well. He
Correct.
was talking about please explain the tax regime.
Okay, so they had 5 amendments to the Income Tax Act, which basically they enhanced limits. They gave more money in the hands of people by enhancing limits. So they said, instead of your tax bill tax meter starting when your income hits 5 lakhs, now that limit is raised to 7 lakhs. So from 5 to 7 lakhs it was raised.
Right.
That
So
was-
just before that, break down the old regime and the new regime as well.
Correct. So now there are 2 regimes of tax. One was the
So I'm so sorry. Regime basically means the way in which the tax is calculated and paid, right?
2 options which a common man has. I can select either the old option or the new option. So there are 2 options. One was the old option, in which the tax rates are there, and whatever your taxable limits are, you have certain deductions against that. If you invest in an insurance, in a health insurance, in a life insurance, if you invest in certain mutual funds called ELSS, or if you invest in pension schemes. So these are certain deductions that you used to get from your income, and finally that reduced income you'd pay tax on that. That was the old regime. Government gave an option of new regime last year where they said that, you know what, forget all these deductions. Whatever your taxable limit, whatever your income is now, we'll start taxing you on that only. But that limit now they have increased. First, that limit was 5 lakhs. So as soon as you cross 5 lakhs, you're supposed to start paying tax.
Got it.
So now the government said, if you opt for the new regime without deductions, instead of 5 lakhs, if your income crosses 7 lakhs, then you start paying tax.
Okay.
So that was one big relief.
Got
in
it.
the form of
So,
a rebate.
why is this increase significant? And this basically means that the government is pushing people to use the newer way of
Correct.
filing
So
taxes.
when the government gave the option last year, still barely any. Most of the population opted for the old regime only. They haven't switched over to the new regime.
Got it.
The government wants to promote the new regime because in advanced economies as well, a deductionless system is deemed more efficient.
But why?
I don't know the exact semantics of it, but because there are so many deductions, and then there are so many that, okay, I can invest here, I can invest there, so there is more complexities basically.
Got
More deductions are more complexities basically. So the government wants to promote a deductionless tax regime. So all these income tax changes that they have made are all for the new regime. Old regime remains as is. And also they have said now by default, the default regime is the new regime.
Okay.
But you have an option to go to the old regime. So this was one change where they increased the limit from 5 to 7 lakhs. Another change is the new regime had many slabs.
Okay.
From 5 lakhs to 7.5 lakhs so much, from 7.5 lakhs to 10 lakhs so much. So there were 6 slabs. They've reduced the number of slabs. So they made it easier.
Got it.
That was the second change. The third change was there is something called leave encashment, which is a little technical now. I won't get into it. But that limit has also been increased. Then the fourth change was there is something called a standard deduction, where you get to deduct 50,000 rupees from your income. They've increased that limit to 52,500.
And that is under the
That is the only deduction available under the new regime. But that is available to everyone.
Okay.
It is not a investment specific deduction. Like example, if I invest in, let's say, if I invest in ELSS scheme, or if I take a life insurance, or if I take, that is called a specific invest. If you invest over here, only then you get deduction. That is not available in the new system. So in the new system, there is only one standard deduction, which they've increased from 50 to 52,500. It's barely anything. And also they have reduced the tax. They have reduced the tax rate for the highest, for people who are in the highest slab.
Okay.
India actually had among the world's highest tax slab for its super rich.
Oh, really?
So yeah, if you earn above 10 crore rupees, basically you're paying a tax of 42.74%.
Wow.
So from 42.74%, now effectively they made it 39%.
Right.
So these were the 5 income tax. This is not for the last one is not for the middle class, but the other 4 are for the middle class.
Now there are questions about taxing the rich more, because the rich are getting richer and richer. That's what there was a recent Oxfam study also.
Correct. That Oxfam report also, that inequality has increased big time in India. But like I said, the budget. See, if you continuously tax the rich more, it is like you're discouraging them also. So like I said, a good budget takes care of everyone. You can't say it will probably take more care of the poor and the middle class, but it has to give the rich also some incentives. Okay, declare your taxes properly, invest, you know what I mean?
Right.
So to encourage them also.
Got it. Okay, cool. What about MSMEs? Because MSMEs again contribute like about 30 to 35% to India's GDP, right?
Correct. MSMEs, which are medium and small enterprises, medium and small businesses, are the biggest job generators in India. I think 30% of GDP also they contribute, and somewhere near 30% or more. I think 50% of jobs.
Right.
50% of jobs they generate.
Right.
So our government is absolutely for giving them more incentives.
Got
So
it.
here they have given credit guarantees.
Hmm.
So they tell banks, okay, you lend to these MSMEs. In case anything goes wrong, the MSMEs can't pay you back. We are guaranteeing that credit. We will give it to you. So this encourages banks to lend more money to MSMEs, to be a
Got
little
it.
more free with them. So they've increased that credit guarantee spend.
Got it.
Okay, and also there is something called presumptive taxation. Basically, they've tweaked a taxation law. They've enhanced limits
Okay.
of a taxation law, saying that for the MSME sector, for small businesses and for professionals,
Right.
up to a certain limit.
Okay.
So one tax benefit under presumptive taxation. Then they have increased credit guarantee scheme, and also the government plans to spend around 22,138 crores towards promoting MSMEs and giving them benefits. So these
Okay.
were the benefits for the MSMEs.
Right. So what are these like apart from the loan part of it? What are some of the other benefits that?
Like I told you, the taxation. They have
Right.
tweaked something in the taxation. It's
Okay.
called presumptive taxation.
right.
Basically, where presumptive taxation is basically where the MSMEs are said, okay, you know what? Don't maintain your books of accounts. Don't get into all this compliance and all that. It takes up a lot of money and all. If your income is below a certain limit, okay, you have to pay tax at only 6 or 8% of that income. That's it. No one's going to ask you any questions. No need to maintain books of accounts. No need to hire chartered accountants. No need to go extensively on
interesting.
compliance measures.
Interesting.
So they've raised that limit. I think it was 2.5 crores. It was 2.5 crores a year. I think now they made it 3 crores a year.
So does this mean the ease of business is also gotten better?
Yes. Ease of business is also gotten better, and it's helping more MSME. So there are basically, if you increase a limit, more people get into that net. More
Right.
people can be classified as MSMEs,
Correct.
which helps the sector.
Interesting. Okay. And what about startups? Have they said anything about startups?
They have said one thing about startups where first.
By the way, this government loves startups. Right?
Yeah.
They've done a lot for
India,
startups.
yes. India is deemed as the startup hub of the world. I think we have the third highest number of startups in the
US,
world.
China, and
Yeah,
India.
third highest number of startups in the world. In the fine print, we'll have to see what they said for the startups. But from what I gauged, what was announced is first, a startup was classified as a startup if it has been in operation for 7 years. So whatever benefits are there for startups, you get it only up till 7 years. Now they've said instead of 7 years, 10 years. So that was the one thing they announced. Now we'll have to see in the fine print what else they have for the startups.
Got it.
So they've increased the limit basically from
Got
7 to 10 years,
Got it.
which helps.
And okay, so there's a question from Omkar. Is the new tax regime bad for insurance companies?
Yes, it is bad for insurance companies and a lot of insurance stocks and a lot of asset management companies. If you see, their stocks went down in a big way. And why is it bad? Because it doesn't encourage investment into insurance. Like in our old tax regime, you used to get a deduction if you have health insurance, if you have a life insurance, if you have health insurance for yourself, your family, your parents, everybody. You used to get a deduction. So people used to be incentivized towards taking more insurance. Now in the new tax regime, there are no such deductions. So people, they won't be incentivized towards taking an insurance for tax
Interesting.
purposes.
Okay.
They'll take it, okay, because I really need health insurance. So chalo, theek hai, I'll take it.
But that education of health insurance, life insurance, also not a lot, right? That's what the whole
Yeah.
case is in India.
India is a massively underinsured country as a whole.
Correct.
We compared to America and all, our insurance is like almost zero. So there's a big market for that for people who get into it. But yeah, this new tax regime does not encourage insurance, and that's why insurance stocks also went down. Let's be very clear about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. So what about rich people? Is it just the tax deduction? Is there anything
Yeah.
else also?
And for rich people, like I said, the maximum effective rate from 42.74% to 39% it was reduced. And for big businesses, they have come up with a lot of. They haven't quantified it, but they announced a lot of measures for ease of doing business, basically.
Okay.
So they decriminalized 3,000 provisions. They decriminalize it because for small provisions, if like example, if a director makes a mistake over here, or if you're a director in a company and you make a mistake, okay, I didn't file this, I didn't go as per this compliance, or you forget to do, it was criminal provisions. They could come after you, they could extort you, you'd have to pay money, and it was a headache.
Right.
So they decriminalized 3,000 provisions. And also they announced other measures of ease of doing business because they are going digital in a big way.
Right.
So a lot of digital and ease of doing business has merged. And also the spending on infrastructure. So big businesses usually are, they have infrastructure as a part of their, whether it be construction companies or whatever. The benefits go on to the big businesses also.
Got it. Yeah. So big businesses. What else is there?
I think these three were the only things that I saw. I'll need to read the fine print of it. Ease of doing business, infrastructure spending, and decriminalization of more digital with the big business. More digital, decriminalizing all those provisions and all. And the rest we'll have to probably check in the fine print.
And there was a large push for towards green energy as well, right? I believe.
Oh, yes. Green energy. So India plans to go carbon neutral by 2070. And there was a big shift. I mean, so we have to shift our coal producing power plants and also other stuff to renewable energy, basically. Renewable energy is wind, water, solar, electric vehicles, green hydrogen. These are the renewable energy sources. So the government has announced some more than 50,000 crores basically. They announced, I think it was 19,000 crores for green hydrogen sector, and another 35,000 crores they announced to help us transition from our fossil fuel to our green energy.
Interesting. Okay. And this is to keep up with our objective to be carbon neutral by 2070.
Yes. And also they're scrapping old vehicles in a big way. They're really encouraging that. Our road transport minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, he's very enthusiastic about this. So they're going to scrap, I think, government vehicles that are over 15 years old. And also they're promoting electric vehicles in a big way. So maybe some of them will be replaced by electric vehicles, electric buses, infrastructure, all that. So green energy is one of the top 3 budget highlights, along with infrastructure and probably tourism.
Right. So and this, so if they're trying to push EVs, that would also mean they would have to install the charging ports and stuff like that, which will come under infrastructure itself.
No, that will come under charging infrastructure. That's different. There are certain companies that take care of that. Tata Power is the main one over there, and there are of course other companies also.
Interesting. And another big thing that we already spoke about was the defense budget, right?
Defense budget.
What is the increase in the defense? Do you have any idea?
No, like I said, they didn't announce it in the budget. We'll have to see the fine print of it.
So they didn't talk about.
They didn't talk about it.
Any specific reason?
I think they had more important things to talk about, basically.
Got it.
I honestly thought they would talk about the defense budget.
Yeah, because that's one of the main things, right?
Right. I honestly did think. Of course, there is an outlay for the defense budget, and it will be increased. It was 5,25,000 crores last year. It will be increased, but we'll have to check in the fine print. They didn't announce anything.
Interesting. Okay. I think this was a complete breakdown of the budget, right?
There were another couple of sectors also. I think tourism. Tourism, they said that they are going to promote tourism in mission mode. They use that word, mission mode. So tourism infrastructure also they are going to improve in a big way. And also they're going to upskill a lot of people for the tourism sector. So hotels you'll see doing very well. Listed hotel stocks today, they were buzzing. Lemon Tree Hotel was up, I think, some 9-10%. And Indian hotels, which is your Taj, was up also a good amount. They all been declaring good results also, these stocks. And so travel and tourism is going to be promoted in a big way.
And does this mean airlines also get better and the structure of airlines also get better now?
They will see more traffic, that's for sure. Now whether they can manage that...
I don't think they'll already be able to manage that.
Now, airlines is a very cyclical sector. It depends on your oil prices and this and that. I think the only one very well-run airline India has is Indigo Airlines. Other than that, it's all up and down. It's a very competitive sector.
Right.
But yes, there will be footfall in the airline sector as well. And another sector that got a big hike of 40% was the IT sector.
Right.
So basically now Ministry of IT is being allocated 16,550 crores, which is a 40% increase, and a good portion of that.
40% increase from the last budget.
Yes, 40% increase.
Isn't that massive?
Yes, that's massive, and they will deploy it into semiconductors.
Ooh,
Yes,
interesting.
semiconductor.
Semiconductors, just to give you context, there was a supply chain issue during the lockdown.
Oh yes, semiconductors are those chips basically in which they are inserted in all electronic items from your
Electronics,
from
cars.
yes, electric vehicles, and now with 5G and electric vehicles set to boom, we'll need more and more semiconductors. So they're everything, and from your phones to your laptops to your computers to every electronic item.
So before Taiwan was is still
It
the
still
hub,
is.
still the hub of semiconductor manufacturing. Because of lockdown, there were supply chain issues, which created a lot of shortage of electronic devices and cars. So India took up the objective of making sure that they become the hub of semiconductor manufacturing.
We are trying. India doesn't have even one factory till now that manufactures.
They haven't
semiconductor.
started one in Uttar Pradesh. I thought
No. They've started working on a factory. India doesn't have one fully functional factory to manufacture these integrated circuits or semiconductors. Basically, each factory costs between $3 and $4 billion to put up.
Wow.
So there are, currently 2 factories underway that are being made right now.
Vedanta is
one of them. Anil Agarwal led Vedanta has set up one, and also the government has announced a semiconductor policy in which they are giving 75,000 crores. They haven't announced it in the budget, but they had announced it a few months ago, where they have come with a semiconductor policy where they're saying we'll give 75,000 crores worth of incentives to those willing to manufacture these semiconductors in India. So they're pushing semiconductors in a big way.
Got it.
So this is truly a shift towards new India, digital India, new India, where you're promoting jobs for the youth. We as a country, I think we're the only probably last major economy where we have a young population. You know what I mean? Otherwise, the population of China and Japan and all are dwindling. America is also not anything great. Western Europe is on the down. So we are the only ones, and rightly so, this government has sort of latched on to that, and they are giving incentives by the dozen. Which is very interesting, yes.
Interesting. Have they done anything? So there's a question from a person, Pala Sen. I don't know if that's your correct name or not, but Pala Sen, anything in particular for commercial or residential real estate? Commercial or residential real estate, like I said, affordable housing they have announced 79,000 crores. Now that will spill over into at least the residential real estate sector. So you'll see a few stocks that are booming here and there. But specifically, they haven't announced anything. But our real estate cycle is on an upswing right now. So it was down and out for a few years. I think it was 6, 7, 8 years since we haven't seen. But now you're seeing all these companies declare results, and every company is saying, oh, we have the highest sales in this quarter, we have the highest sales in that quarter, highest profit in this quarter, highest profit in that quarter. So real estate is on the upswing. Interesting. Okay, cool. And last question, anything on petrol, diesel, fuel, anything? That's the major concern, right?
That is the major concern, and that's why they haven't announced it in the budget. I didn't hear anything about it in the budget. But like I said, we are shifting from coal, and we basically, as you see, this problem with petrol and diesel and all is, India, unfortunately, we are not gifted in terms of natural resources.
Right.
Okay. Tomorrow, if we as a nation, if we have to progress, it's only going to be on our entrepreneurial ability. Correct? It's only going to be because we are good entrepreneurs. It's not like Russia. One US president, he made a statement about Russia. Russia is gas station masquerading as a country. I mean, these guys, they're so lucky in terms of natural resources, natural gas, and oil and this and that. We Indians, we don't have it. So our biggest import is oil. But our government is really working on substituting this oil import.
Okay.
And this oil import, and again, our green energy transition is a step in that direction.
Right.
But till we transition totally to, let's say, electric vehicles, green hydrogen, and all that, there is one thing the government has done very interestingly, and it is promoting ethanol in a big way. So ethanol is a biofuel which is made from like crops, mainly sugarcane, but you can make it of rice and wheat and millets and this and that. So it's a biofuel, and they are planning to mix 20% ethanol with petrol by 2025. We have a target by
Okay.
2025. In fact, this target was for 2030.
Okay.
2030,
Oh.
imagine they preponed the target. When
By
was the
5
last
years?
by 5 years? When was the last time in India our target got preponed? Everything keeps getting postponed. Nothing has preponed. So that's for you to know how serious they are. So now by 2025 we will have 20% ethanol mixed with petrol. And they are trying to find a binding agent where they can mix it with diesel also. That will be a game changer.
Got it.
Most of our stuff runs on diesel over here.
Right. Right.
But they haven't announced anything specifically in the budget
Right.
based on this.
Omkar has said Vedanta X Foxconn. I think that's what.
Yes,
those
yes,
are
yes, yes,
semiconductor
yes, yes, yes.
manufacturers,
The semiconductor one, correct.
right? Awesome. Okay. Last question for you, Mr. Talk Stock. Any stock recommendations based on today's budget?
Stock recommendations. I won't go out.
Again, do your own research. He's just recommending based on his, because he is an expert himself. He's recommending based on his research and his views. But highly recommend you guys research based on what he recommends as well. Don't just
Correct.
blindly buy.
This is not a recommendation, basically. Please do your own research. Now, I would say green energy, for example. I have gone out on a limb and said Adani Green. But I'm not going to say that because of the Adani route. Guys, please don't touch any Adani stocks, okay? But the biggest beneficiary of this green hydrogen and shift towards green energy would be Adani Green, ideally, if this Hindenburg report didn't come out. But I don't see that. So now you have JSW Energy, which is doing a lot in green energy. You have Tata Power, which has announced a lot of capital outlay for green energy. And of course, you have Reliance. Reliance has announced, what was the figure? Over 10 years, they plan to spend something close to 50,000
50,000 crores, yeah.
Over 10 years, they plan to spend. So this was green energy. Railways, okay? Railways have got a big capital outlay, highest ever. Government has, in this budget, announced 240,000 crores, 2.4 trillion rupees towards railway infrastructure.
Got it.
So you have a few railway stocks. I think one is Rail Vikas Nigam Limited, RVNS. Then one we have IRCON. And there is one more, I can't think of it. So railway stocks will do well. Infrastructure stocks, of course, will do well. The best way to play the infrastructure theme, if you're getting confused which stock is going to benefit, basically the way to play it is, now government has announced 10 trillion rupees for infrastructure. You are second guessing yourself, even me, everyone is second guessing that which company will corner maximum of this investment. So rather than that, just buy an infrastructure ETF when you know that the government is,
Interesting.
yes,
Or a small case.
or a small case. So this is a collection of infrastructure stocks, basically, all of them, from your Cummins to your Siemens to L&T will be there, all these massive infrastructure stocks, and they have an ETF of it. So instead of guessing which infrastructure stock and which, maybe you could go in for an ETF. Again, please do your own research. So these were sector specific. And semiconductors, we have three. One is Vedanta, will benefit. One is Tata Elxsi, which is big time into design and testing of semiconductors. They don't manufacture, design and testing. And there's one small little company called Moschip that can also benefit. So these were the sort of stocks.
And tourism?
Oh yes, I forgot. Of course, Lemon Tree Hotels is great. Lemon Tree Hotels just declared an amazing set of results yesterday only. And Indian Hotels, which is the biggest hotel chain, the Taj Hotels, basically.
Right.
These two listed stocks. There are others also. East India
Would
Hotels.
you recommend
EIH.
airlines?
No, I wouldn't recommend airlines because there's a very cyclical sector and a lot of competition in that sector.
Right.
It's like, you know how, example, this is what I keep telling people, that if you go online, you want to book a flight from, let's say, Bangalore to Goa. You'll go online, you'll go onto one of these sites, you'll get a list of 10 options. Now, you will not see which option will you take. You'll take the option which is the least, even if that ticket is 10 rupees cheaper than the other ticket. Aag band karke, you're going to take that ticket
Cheaper
only.
ticket. Yeah.
You're not going to say, okay, this airline gives me better. I mean, in this lounge I'll get better facilities, or in this airline I'll get better food, or this that. You don't see all that. Aag band karke, even if it's 10 rupees cheaper, you will choose that. So
Correct.
imagine the intensity of the competition in that airline.
Correct.
So everyone, the prices, they have to keep it. They have to keep it
Yeah.
in check. That's why I would never. There are experts who play the sector and all, but I'm not one of them. So I would keep away from these sectors, basically.
Awesome. I think this was a good breakdown.